All right, it's starting time. Welcome. It's Tuesday, April 28th, E-period Algebra 1. Let me go over a couple of announcements. Let's see here. Let me just make sure I got all up to date. All right. The 5-2 quiz that was put in there last Wednesday, unless you did it in an email after the fact, I don't see that I've got the 5-2 quiz from Mr. Campbell. Mr. Mr. Goodmont, we've already talked. Mr. Hunter, Mr. Kelly, Leopardi, Martin, Mick, and Seeley. So that was due last Friday. So several days ago. It was a 20-minute quiz. So if you'd rather get something, I'm going to probably dedicate some points if you didn't submit it by last Friday. But please get that submitted ASAP.
Did you say I didn't turn in the 5-2 quiz?
Not that I can locate.
Okay, I'll resend it.
So
It wasn't in Dropbox.
You want me to put it in the Dropbox?
Well, not now because it's 4 days old. It was supposed to have been in there last Friday. So email it to me because it's a bear going back through and weeding out Dropbox stuff that's already been versus that hasn't already been done. So you have to email it to me.
you got mine, right?
I thought I emailed mine.
Who said that? Who said they emailed yours?
What do you want me to email to you again?
If you've got confirmation that you emailed it to me, additionally, rather, if you put it in by the due date, I'd rather have it in Dropbox. But I'll go research emails and see if I can find it in there.
You got mine, right, Mr. Gaffney?
Mr. Vasquez, I did, but other than the matching, you may want to go back and look because everything else was done incorrectly. So the score is very, very low. You want to maybe go back and look at your problem sets 1 and 2 from 5-2. I'm not exactly sure what you were trying to accomplish, but you weren't solving for the variable of the inequality. I said most everything other than the 6 matching in the front was incorrect. So if you want to retake a look at that or get on with me during office hours, or maybe you can kind of decipher from what we're going to do today and then resubmit it, I'll give you partial credit for the resubmission. Okay. Also, Mr. Velasquez, you've got to be online. Start of the hour, technically, I'm not supposed to let you in. All right. And you're supposed to also have your camera on. That goes for you, Mr. Hunter, or I'm not supposed to keep you in the class. And Mr. Hughes, if you can hear me, this is the absolute very last day that I'm going to let you in after the start of class. You'll just have to watch it on YouTube.
Wait, Mr. Gaffney, you said 5-2, something like that?
I'm going to say it one more time, Mr. Hunter. If you don't get it this time, just get on during office hours or check Blockbod. I don't have a 5-2 number 3 problem set from you. I don't have a 5-3 problem set number 1 from you. Most of you, only 2 people turned in 5-3 problem set last Wednesday.
Since when have we been
5-2 quiz. And I need you to turn your camera on, otherwise I'm going to kick you out of the room like we're supposed to. So turn your camera on.
Man, that's why.
So either get with the program or you're out and you can watch the class on YouTube.
Camera. Happy. Oh, snap.
All right.
Hey, I found this in my room. I got cereal in my room.
That's wonderful. You're going to be kicked out of my room here in a minute. So any housekeeping chores before we get started with class? All right. If I don't have that stuff today from you guys, it's a 0 after today because I'm not going to go back and do a bunch of late graded work. I've got 6 classes and 80-some in the late work.
What problem set? I didn't hear you.
The late work is overwhelming.
Sir, did
Hughes,
you
this will
get
be
my
the-
problem?
Mr. Hughes, this will be the last day. I'm going to let you in class late, okay?
Okay, I heard that, but
You're just going to have to watch the class on YouTube.
yes, sir. But the problem set. Did you get my problem set?
Mr. Hughes. I got your 5-3. No, yeah, you're all caught up.
I bet. Say less.
One of the only three did what you're supposed to do since last Wednesday. As you can probably tell from the tone of my voice, I'm a little bit frustrated with the, only had two things. You only had to do two things in the last 5 days: take the quiz and submit the problem set, and the vast majority didn't do that. All right. So with that being said, let me tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to put the problem set 5-3 number 1. I'm going to share my screen with you. We're going to go over the answers. At the end of class, I'm going to put 5-3 problem set number 2. You can use for practice. And then on Wednesday, we're going to do a test on we're going to quiz on 5-3, which is the solving of inequalities of using multi-step with using addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. Right? So it really covers, and the reason I'm not quizzing on 5-3 is because we're putting together 5-1, 5-2, and 5-3 actually puts together what you learned in 5-1 and 5-2 and then ups the complexity a little bit. So there will be a test. It may be our only test of the quarter. So you want to do well on that because it can repair a lot of damages or it can create a lot of damages. So any questions on that? Any questions on that? All right, let me get what I need here. We're going to do 5-3 number 1. Okay, can everybody see 5-3 number 1?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So ideally, what you want to do is have yours right there in front of you. Talk about a few things, and I'm not going to put the answers in solution set format just because I'm doing this on the screen and the writing's hard. But you want to have it in a solution set format, which is the handlebar mustache, the variable, the vertical line, and the variable again, and the inequality symbol and the value. Okay. And Mr. Velasquez, that's the format of the answer that you should have done in the 5-2 quiz. Those two formats. Once you've solved for the variable, you've got to solve for the variable. Okay. I'm not going to do the solution set format just because the writing with this using my mouse is as you can see is somewhat scratchy. Okay. As a reminder, that the only thing that you can really get in trouble here for is when you have to multiply or divide by a negative number to solve for the variable. Make sure you flip the direction of the inequality. Make sure you flip the direction of the inequality. Okay. So on this one here, I'm just going to talk about it and I'll put the answer. Number 1, you subtract 13 from both sides and then you're going to divide by 11. So your final answer should be y is greater than or equal to -1 and 3/11. Or you could have expressed that as -14/11. Stop me if you got any questions. On number 2, we had to add 10 to both sides and then add 2 into both sides, right? And you would have come up with n is less than 1 3/5. I want you to check your answers versus these answers, right? You may have expressed this. Do not put it in decimal format. Leave it in a fraction format. You could have expressed this as 8/5, right? 5 times 1 is 5, plus the 3 is 8.
Mr. Gaffney,
Yes, sir?
what problem set is this? I can't find. I couldn't hear you.
It is 5-3, number 1, that we started in class last Thursday, I'm sorry, last Thursday. 5-3, number 1. Everybody,
Okay, thank you.
everybody's got that, right?
Mine might be in my house.
All right, so on number 3, we had to subtract 1 for both sides first. And then we had, which we wouldn't, even though we're subtracting or using a negative value, we don't change the direction of inequality. And then we had to multiply both sides by 7, right? And it should have gotten an answer, Q is greater than negative 42. Stop me if you got a question. Number 4, remember we always start moving things furthest away from the variable that we're isolating first. So here, we're going to subtract 12 from both sides, and we're going to subtract 8 in from both sides, right? We always want to get that variable for our final answer over on the left side of the equation, and you should have come up with an answer of n is greater than 2. Any questions on those 4? Anybody having difficulty or not getting those answers? Couple things. Remember to, I'm not doing it just because I can't write real well with this pen. You want to put in solution set format, handlebar mustache, the variable, straight vertical line, the variable again, and then the inequality and the value. If you ended up with something that looked like this, particularly number 4, and you had 2, it looked like this, you had the variable over on the right side. Get the variable over on the left side, just reverse it. All right, you can do that by commutative property. All right, and the thing to remember is this thing is pointing at the 2, so keep it pointing at the 2. Make sense? All right, and if there's no questions on side 1, we will go to side 2. Mr. Seal, I think, is helping me with some graphics there, I would imagine. Okay, here we go. Number 5. All right, you had to add 12 to both sides, and you had to subtract 4D from both sides. And the actual answer, because you can see you end up with a negative D, it's D is less than what? 0. Everybody get that? That one was a little bit unique. And we had to add 12 to both sides, which made that right side 0, right? And it canceled out the 12 on the left side, and then we had to subtract 4D from both sides. So you actually had negative 5D is greater than 0, and you had to divide both sides by the negative 5.
Sure.
Sir?
Oh, why do you have to do like this straight line and then another D and then the handlebar mustache?
Because remember, with inequalities, unlike an equation where you'd have like D equals 0, where it's one single value correct answer, here you've got a solution set. Anything, if I plug in any number smaller than 0 into these D's, let's just say a negative 10. And it's infinite numbers I could plug in. I just picked out of the air because it's less than 0. And I do the math. This value on the left side of the equation is going to be greater than this, whatever the sum and the product is on the right side of the equation. So it's what they call a solution set format, because it's an infinite number of solutions because it can be any value less than 0.
Okay.
That's the reasoning behind it. All right, number 6. All right, we had to subtract 8R from both sides, or 5R from both sides, depending on which side you want to work it. And then you had to add 6 to both sides. And you should have gotten an answer of R is less than 4. Stop me if you're not getting these answers, and I'll go into a little more detail of how to solve these. All right, if I don't hear anything. All right, this one here, what's the first thing you want to do in number 7 to solve this? We want to get rid of that infamous fraction that everybody hates, right? So we're gonna multiply both sides by 2, right? So then you're gonna end up with just negative 3x plus 6 is less than or equal to, let's see here, 24. Okay. Now it gets rid of the fraction. Now we're in good shape, all right? And then we're going to subtract 6 from both sides, right? And then we're going to divide both sides by a negative 3, which of course then is going to reverse the direction of the inequality, and we're going to end up with x is greater than or equal to negative 6. Okay. Everybody get that, or anybody have any questions on that one? A little bit more complex with the fraction on that left side.
Yeah, it's kind of complex, I guess you could say. Because
So
it's,
just multiply 2, both sides by 2, which gets rid of the fraction. So then you've got that negative 3x plus 6 is less than 24, which looks like any of the other problems you did up to that point. All right. Remember, as a general philosophy, as far as kind of like order of operations, you want to start moving things that are furthest away from the variable that you're solving for, all right? Well, negative 3 is as close to that variable as you can possibly get, so that's going to be probably the last thing I do. But the 2 and the 6 are some distance away. So we don't like, I know we don't like fractions, so let's see what's the simplest way to get rid of that fraction. Multiply both sides by 2, and it's gone. All right, number 8. You had to add 14.4 to both sides and subtract 4.9 from both sides, and you should have ended up with y is greater than 6. Okay. Number 9, let's see what we had to do here. If you're removing the m's on the other side, you had to add an m to both sides and add a 3 to both sides, and then you're going to have to multiply by, or question divide by a negative 9, right? Which is going to change that direction of the inequality. It's going to make the m positive, and it's going to give you a final answer of m is greater than negative 3. All right, and number 10, you know it's going to reverse that direction of inequality because I got a negative on a 4y, which I had to add 2y to both sides. So again, y is less than negative. There's 2 ways you can give it to me. Let's see, we're going to make it 29 halves. Could have done that, 29 halves. Or you could have expressed it as negative 14 and a half. Any questions on those? Are we getting these answers? All right, I assume not hearing any no's. I assume we are. We are doing these problem sets, right? Only about 3 of you turned it in. So I'm not sure what your other guys are doing.
I got them all right, so I'm chilling.
Got them all right? Excellent. Okay. Remember on these, this will probably be a bonus on the test on Wednesday. You got to do 2 things. You got to create the inequality from the statement, and then you got to solve for the variable. All right. So we got negative 3 times the number. Let's just use n for a number. So we got negative 3n, right? And it says plus 4, so we're going to add 4. all right, is no more than, which is kind of the negative of less than, right? No more than, let's see, and it's got to be less than or equal to, is no more than -8. So that's part one. And there was something similar to this on the 5-2 quiz. All right. Now you've got an inequality similar to those 10 problems we just completed. Now solve for n. So we're going to subtract 4 from both sides. Subtract 4 from both sides. I'm not going to show you the work unless you need to. And then we are going to divide by -3, which is going to reverse that inequality. And we're going to get n is greater than or equal to 3. Did I get that one right? You getting these? All right. I assume not hearing any confusion. I'll proceed. All right. So the next one, it says 1/4 a number. So we got 1/4 n. Decreased means we're going to subtract by 3 is at least, which means greater than or equal to 2. All right. So then we're going to add 3 to both sides, which makes 5 on the right side, right? And then we're going to multiply both sides by 4, which will isolate that n, and we'll get n is greater than 20, I believe. Let me double check. Yeah. Okay. So that is problem set number 1. And remember, this section, it's just multi-step inequalities. So we're doing the addition and subtraction and some of the steps like we did in 5-1. We're doing multiplication division, which is 5-2. And we're doing, all these involve more than one single step that like we were doing in 5-1 and 5-2. Any questions? All right. If you got some scratch paper there handy, let's grab that, and I will put this problem set on Blackboard after this class. Okay. Let me clear up my minutes here.
So I don't have this problem set yet?
No, it'll be in Blackboard in about 20 minutes, but I'm gonna just handwrite the problems on loose leaf paper, and there'll be that many less you have to do. I'm not going to do a Dropbox on this since most of you didn't even do the last one. So it just creates a bunch of work.
I emailed it to you, sir. The 531.
All right.
Then I found my quiz that I forgot to email in. I think it's because the retake that I had to do. I thought that I only had to turn that one in, and I forgot to turn the other one in.
Okay. All right. So let me let's see. I think I had to quit share. I gotta come out of the share here for a second. Let me pick a new 5-3 number 2. All right. Give me a second.
So we just went over problem set.
We just went over 5-3 number 1, which was the one we started in class last Thursday. I'm sorry, last Thursday. Okay, that's 5-3 number 1. And now we're going to do 5-3 number 2. I will have it in. There's misspelling. I will
Mr. Gaffney,
in Blackboard about a half hour after class today.
Mr. Gaffney,
Yes, sir.
can you email me 5-2 problem set 3 and the quiz that you were talking about?
Why don't you go back into Blackboard from last week and just pull it off of there? Instead of making me do everything twice, and you're not doing it at all. So go back to Blackboard last Thursday. It's attached there.
So this problem set will be homework, right?
The homework, and this is the last problem set on this section, because it's really just a compilation of 5-1 and 5-2 with a little more complexity. And this is going to prep you for the test that we're going to do at the end of class on Wednesday. At the end of class on Thursday. End of class on Thursday.
So no homework?
Mr. Martin, what did I just say? This is the
I
last
sure.
problem set of 5-3. We're going to start it in class today, finish it for homework.
Okay.
And this is going to prep you for the test on 5-3 that we're going to do at the end of class on Thursday.
Thank you, sir.
Make sense? Because I'm not going to do a bunch of problem sets. You know, I think 2 on this section is sufficient because we did 2 or 3 on 5-1. We did 2 or 3 on 5-2. Okay. All right. I'm going to use the, hold on a second, let me just scroll up a little bit. This is a great example. So this is, let me see here. Let's change things up. Okay. So I'm going to talk about the notes that are on the top of this one. We're going to add just a hair more complexity on solving multi-step inequalities. And we're going to do the distributive property. So you've got actually another step in the process, all right? So I'm just going to read this to you. I've underlined and bolded a few things. It says solve inequalities involving the distributive property. Remember the distributive property, we've done distributive property before. So say like you had 4 times 2x, that's plus 1, right? And the distributive property just states that I'm going to it's kind of like a compound multiplication problem. It means I'm going to multiply everything in those parentheses by whatever's outside that parentheses. And that 4 could actually be in front of the parentheses or it could be behind them. It's the exact same thing. Most commonly, it's going to be in the front. So we're going to multiply 4 times 2x, which is going to be 8x, right? And then we're going to multiply 4 times 1, which of course is 4. So now that equation now equals 8x plus 4. And I can't do anything more with that because 8x and 4 are not like terms. So I can't combine them, I can't add them, I can't simplify. Right? We've done distributive property a lot. I know you did it probably in your middle school algebras also. So it shouldn't be anything real new there. All right, so it says when solving inequalities that contain grouping symbols, which is parentheses, all right, first use the distributive property to remove the grouping symbols. So this is going to be your first step. And just think in terms of order of operations. It's PEMDAS, right? It's parentheses. So it somewhat complies with order of operations in that regard. And it says, then undo the operations in reverse of the order of operations, just as you would solve an equation with more than one operation. That sounds like lawyer speak. It's very convoluted and a little bit confusing. Probably should have either reworded that or just not included it at all. So, but the takeaway here is let's get rid of those parentheses by applying the distributive property first. And then we're going to move stuff back and forth across that inequality, and we're going to combine like terms. That's what that says, but it's in such a weirdly worded thing. You don't really like, what are they telling me to do? So if you look at this example, and I think it's a real good example, we've got actually 2 distributive properties going on, or two distributive situations going on. Let's look at the left side first, right? So we've got a grouping symbol here. And if you see what they did, that negative outside that parentheses reverses the sign of everything inside that parentheses, and we remove it, right? It's kind of like if you had a negative, or you had a 1 between that negative symbol and before the parentheses, and you just distributed the negative 1. It's going to reverse, see the 4a, which was a positive inside the parentheses, now is a negative 4a. And the positive 6 inside the parentheses now becomes a negative 6. That's a real common mistake made by lots of people. So one way you could kind of remember this is pretend you kind of treat it like you have a negative 1 there, and then distribute the negative 1 to the 4a and the 6. So that takes care of the parentheses on the right side, and then we've got a parentheses on the left side, and we have to distribute that negative 2 to 6a, and so that's a positive 6a, so now it becomes negative 12a, right? And we distribute that negative 2 times negative 4, now becomes a positive 8. So be careful on your signage with distributed property. It's a common mistake made by many people, right? So that -2, you're not only multiplying, but it's going to reverse the sign of each value and or each value and variable within that parentheses. Does that make sense? Somehow, just make sure you reverse the sign when you're distributing a negative number. All right, let me erase some of my garbage here, and then we'll continue. We're going to continue this. All right. So we distribute that -2, so we got a -12a and a +8. We distribute that negative sign, or -1. We got this. So now we've got some like terms on both sides. So let's combine the like terms. We got 3a minus 12a becomes -9a. The a just stays as is, and we got a like terms of 4 minus 6. So 4 minus 6 is a -2. So now we've combined like terms. Okay, so now we're kind of where we were with the problems that we had in problem set 1. All right, now we're going to isolate, we're going to combine, combining like terms. We're going to get hopefully that variable with whatever coefficients it has on the left side, the plain old numbers without variables over on the right side, and then we're going to isolate and solve for that particular variable. All right, so let's see here. So we're down to here, right? No, let's see. We were down to here before I stopped. All right, so now what are we going to do? We're going to add 4a to both sides. Remember, that's just the equality property of inequalities and equations. What I do to one side, I got to do to the other. So they added a 4a here, and they added a 4a here to get the a's on the other side. So now we've got like terms of -4a and +4a, so that becomes 5a. So we're left with -5a plus 8 minus 2. Now we're going to subtract 8 from both sides to get that +8 over on the right side of the equality. Again, we're going to do that to both sides, and we're left with a -5a is greater than -10. One thing we have left is to get that darn -5 off the a. So we're going to divide by -5 both sides, or another way you could do it if it makes more sense and you're more comfortable with it is we're going to take the reciprocal of -5, which is -1/5, and we can multiply. If we take the reciprocal instead of dividing, we're going to multiply. So we're going to multiply both sides by -1/5, or we're going to divide both sides by -5. Both accomplish the exact same thing, and we're left with a is less than 2. You notice the inequality changed direction because we had to multiply both sides by -1/5, or we had to divide both sides by -5. That's why I bolded here. Remember to change that direction of the inequality if you're multiplying or dividing by a negative number. And that's this section. Okay? Questions before we proceed? That's a great example. To use it, and use that as a reference when you're doing these on your own. If you get stuck tonight or or tomorrow night or whenever you're working on these, don't forget, if you want a refresher, go to Khan Academy and just type into the search box there, solving multi-step inequalities. Solving multi-step inequalities. There's probably 3 or so videos there you can watch, or that other website, which I'm a proponent of, that I think is actually clearer and more concise and easier to follow, is that patrick.jmt, patrick.jmt. And we've used them in the past. Hopefully, hopefully you've used them also outside of class. And it's kind of like you're looking over his right shoulder, and he's just got a big notepad there with a big Sharpie, and you're kind of looking over his shoulder down at his loose leaf paper or his notepad, and he'll walk you through very clearly and concisely explaining how to solve that. Again, he's got a search box in his page, and it just type in solving multi-step inequalities. I think there's 3 or 4 on his site also. Okay, so Let me walk you through a couple of these. All right. I'm actually going to give you two ways. Some of these you've got options to solve. Actually, that's number one. You got two options. Let's do how it's instructed. So we're going to distribute that to. So you got to distribute to everything in the parentheses. You can't just do one. You can't pick a favorite or choose. So now we got 2t plus 6 is greater than or equal to 16, right? Everybody good so far? Next thing, what's the next thing we're going to do? Anybody? What's the next step?
You have to get the t by itself.
Okay, so to do that, what would be the next thing to move around?
Would it be the 6?
Yeah, we're gonna subtract 6 from both sides. So if we subtract 6 from both sides, we're gonna get 2t is greater than or equal to 10, right? And then the last thing Mr. Davidson would tell you is that you're gonna then divide both sides by 2, and t is greater than or equal to 5. Okay, questions? I'm going to do something here for you. I'm going to throw you a little bit of a curveball or give you an option. Let's do that. Give you an option. Anybody see another way to solve this other than distributing? You can't do this on all of them. You can do it on some of them. What if instead of I know this is actually this is a little contrary to the section, but I'm going to get, like I said, it's always nice to have options because then you can do different things. I could actually divide both sides by 2, which would cancel out this 2 that they're asking you to distribute, right? So now I get t. Let's just see if it gets us to the same answer. So now I got t plus 3 is greater than or equal to 8, right? If I subtract 3 from both sides, I get t is greater than or equal to 5. Exact same answer. Like I said, I'm reluctant to show this to you because we're kind of doing the undistributive property. But like I said, it's always nice to have options. And I'm not going to hold you to which methodology, since I've shown you both, you use. And I just want to give you an option. The nice thing about dividing by 2 is it keeps the numbers smaller and simpler, and so you're less likely to make a careless error, which is always a good thing. All right. Let me clear up the mess. Let's see here. Now, number 2, you do not have that option of dividing like 2 like we did in number 1, but I'm going to show you something in number 3 that's similar. So let's look at number 2. First thing we're going to do, we got to distribute that 3. So now I got 3d. 3 times d is 3d. 3 times negative 2 is a minus 6. The minus 2d just kind of stays as it's written. And I got it's greater than 16, right? All right, so now I've got like terms on the left side. Now, be careful because I know there's some folks, these guys are on the same side of the equation. So I'm not going to add 2d because if I was going to move that 2d to the other side of the inequality, I would add 2d. But this is on the exact same side, right? So just do what it says. So it's 3d minus 2d, right? Do not, and I know some of you like to do this, do not add 2d. It's not 5d, it's going to be d, right? 3d minus 2d is d, right? And so now I got d minus 6 is greater than 16, right? And so the last thing I've got to do is to add 6 to both sides, right? And so I'm going to get d is greater than 22. Again, let me just, I know I'm repeating myself, but I was going to change it for my hands, but it's not wanting me to. No, doesn't want me to do that. Again, since this 2d, negative 2d, is on the same side of the equation, just subtract it from the 3d. Do not add it. I know there's some folks in the past who would want to add this 2d. It's on the same side. The only time you would add it is if you want to move it to the opposite or other side of the inequality. Everybody clear on that? Make some kind of mental note, you know, scratch it on your paper. It's on the exact same side, so do the math exactly as it's written or depicted. All right. So now we got 4h minus 8. And that's less than, here's your distributive. So I'm going to distribute that 2 to the h, which now becomes 2h. I'm going to distribute the 2 to the -1, becomes -2. Oops, I left the h off the floor. You see, we didn't help me on that one. All right. So I'm going to subtract 2h from both sides, and I'm going to end up with 2h on this side, right? Subtract 2h from both sides. This one cancels. 4h minus 2h is 2h. I'm going to combine steps. I'm going to add 8 to both sides. So if I add 8, that cancels. And add 8 to -2, I now have got what? I got 6, right? Sloppy writing. I got 2h's less than 6, and the last thing I got to do is divide by 2, and I get h is less than 3. Remember, put it in solution set format. I'm not doing it just because it's so hard to write with the stylus or this with my mouse, okay? Now, let me show you one. Again, I'm going to give you an option. If you recognize this. Okay, look at this. Here's the 2 it's asking you to distribute. Now, similar to what we did up here in number 1, and the only time I would do this is because 4 is an even number and 8's an even number. If those were odd numbers, if either one or both of those were odd numbers, I wouldn't even suggest doing this. But since they're both even, you could divide both sides by 2 instead of distributing, right? So we'd end up with 2h minus 4 is what? Less than, my hand's getting cramped, h minus 1, right? So if I subtract h from both sides, I subtract h from that cancels. This 2h now becomes h, right? And if I add 4 to both sides, I get 4 cancels, and 4 plus -1 is 3, right? So I get the exact same answer as distributing. Again, I would only do this because this guy's an even number, this guy's an even number, and this guy's an even number. If that 4 or that 8 or both of them are odd numbers, I wouldn't attempt it. But again, it gives you an option. All right. We're down to the last 4 or so minutes of class. Let's see, I will load this on Blackboard as soon as, well, I got to load this on YouTube. So give me till like 10:30 and I'll have it on Blackboard. So we did 1 through 3.
Yeah.
14 problems total of those. So you got 11 to do. And then there's 2 of these bonus. Remember on the bonus, it's 2 steps. You've got to create the inequality and then you have to simplify the inequality. Okay.
For number 3, did you get 5 or 3? Because I couldn't.
But number 3 was h is less than 3. H is less than 3.
Okay.
Okay. All right. I'm not going to have you put this, I'm not going to put a Dropbox for this, but I will have it on Blackboard. Do these problems. We will just remember to do these problems. We'll spend the first 15 minutes of class just kind of going over answers, checking signals. I'll give you the kind of watch out for, be sure of, be careful of kind of thing. All right. And then if there's no questions, I'll probably just load the test up right there during class, and I'll give you some class time to start it, and then hopefully you can finish it if you don't have it. See, EF. If you don't have an F period, you can continue working on it. Otherwise, just do it later that day. So you can get it done on Thursday.
Mr. Gaffney, is this problem set you're gonna post and be homework tonight, or just practice?
Both? You don't put it on Blackboard. I'm not going to put a Dropbox for it. There's only 3 of you did the last one. So I'm not going to do a Dropbox in this one. Other questions?
Mr. Gaffney, can you send me everything I'm missing?
No, sir. Just get on Blackboard and download it yourself.
That's tough.
So this problem
Yeah,
set
well,
is,
Mr. Hunter, you're making me double and triple the work, and there's 88 of you out there. All right.
Okay.
It's a lot of work to do it, for me to do it once for each of you, to have to do it a second and third time because for whatever reason you didn't do it initially. You're going to have to scratch it out, find it on Blackboard and download or print it.
so this problem set is due. We'll just have it done by class Thursday.
Yep. It's purely to prep you for the test.
Okay.
And make sure you got all the bugs and kinks worked out, okay?
Thank you. Bye,
You're
sir.
welcome. All right, we'll see you. Okay, any other questions?
Okay. 5-2 problem set 3. And what quiz?
Never did the quiz from last week.
I did do the quiz. I sent it to you.
I don't have it.
I just sent my quiz.
Okay.
I sent all my stuff in.
Yeah, it was due last Friday. All right,
There you go.
any other questions?
Okay, 5-2 problem set 3, the quiz. And 5-3 problem set 1.
Sounds about right. Check Blackboard, so wherever you got a 0. Okay, if there's no other questions, I will see you on Thursday at 9 a.m.
Okay.
Sir, did you put in my extra 10? So I came to the office hours
Last week or this week?
last week.
You got 100 for your rep grade because you got 45 for each class and 10 for the office hours.
Okay.
100.
Thank you.
Okay.